Hello and welcome to another episode of the Opportunity Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Elfring, the head of marketing over here at Empire Flippers. And today I am speaking with Beth Mazza, the founder of Female Mavericks and a 2 times exit founder who exited one business at a 1x multiple and then did it again for $40 million, or roughly right around $40 million. So Beth, she ran two pretty large consulting firms, and the lessons she learned from selling the first consulting firm that bled over to really upping the ante to be able to sell her second one for a much higher valuation are absolutely gold. You can tell that she comes from a little bit of a more enterprise style background than what a lot of my guests come from. But what she says applies to everyone. I mean, a lot of the stuff we talk about could be applied to your business, even if you're not going to be selling the business, to make the business far better than what it was. So I really enjoyed this conversation. If you are looking to level up your business and maybe even join a group of all female founders, if you're a female founder yourself, then this is going to be a fantastic episode for you. With that said, we'll get off my soapbox here and I will see you on the other side. Okay, I have Beth Mazza with me, the founder of the Female Mavericks, and also the founder of a couple of consulting services that we're going to be talking about that sold for a big amount, which is kind of a rarity in a lot of the consulting spaces. But Beth, thanks so much for doing this podcast and for coming on. For people who are not familiar with the legend that is you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm for sure not a legend, as my 4 kids will tell you. But so I'm a 3-time founder, but my first two businesses were consulting firms. They were in the communications and PR side of the world, but very focused on investors versus, general public or B2B, B2C. And both were sold to global consulting firms, and one was sold for 1 times revenue, one was sold for 4 times revenue. And I describe that because the businesses were not markedly different. I left so much money on the table the first time that it's one of the many reasons I'm here talking.
I always tell people the first M&A transaction you have is kind of like training wheels.
Yes.
But for sellers, like usually they can go a long period between the next exit versus
Yeah.
buyers, which maybe that's something we could talk about. But walk me through that. So first of all, maybe let's focus on the first deal. So you sold this consulting firm. Was it more like a marketing agency or more like actually you're sending people in to consult and build plans and
Yeah.
the company goes do this?
It was a high-end consulting where our teams would go in. We would work with public company CEOs and CFOs around the financial part of their story and telling that story to institutional investors like, Fidelity, US Bank, institutional investors who were buying the stock. They were writing on the stock, they were recommending the stock. So it was a great mix of financial and communications, and it was pretty high stakes because they were public companies.
Oh, I can only imagine the high stakes of trying to craft a narrative that sells more stock.
When
So,
something like terrible has happened, for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So, how did you even go about selling this business? Because normally consulting firms tend to run it up against a pretty heavy wall when it comes to
Yeah.
exits, because like you are the expert, right?
Yep.
Unless you have like really crazy good systems or your employees, which I assume you must have, where they can really inherit a lot of your own wisdom.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit about that first exit. How did it come about?
Yeah. And I think the difference between the 1 time exit and the 4 time exit was very much the 1 time exit was built around myself and my partner and our expertise. And so therefore the deal was structured that way as well. And we just
Mm.
didn't make that mistake in the second business. But I will say that it means no shame to sell a business for 1 times revenue. It's a great number for sure. And my learnings were this: one, we had such a sharpened sort of competitive position in the industry that the big consulting firms wanted to work with large public companies. And we were, by virtue of what we did for a living, our clients were CEOs and CFOs. So they knew we had access to the real goods. So a competitive firm wanted that. They liked public companies, they liked access to the executive suite. And they hadn't spent a lot of time building this like very unique part of their business, which was financial communications. So we could turnkey, and we did turnkey to them, 30 or 40 client relationships where we were in the CEO and CFO suite. And we had a very sort of sharpened brand around finance, and they could sort of come in and just take that over. And now it was, FTI Consulting, Ashton Partners, and they immediately had a client they got revenue from and a client that they could sell other stuff to. So I think that was the positive of that, is that we were very, very sharp in the little niche that we were going to play in. But we also had the thing that they wanted, which was they wanted access to the C-suite. And we had that by virtue of what we did. I think if our primary contact had been a mid-manager, we would never have gotten acquired.
That makes sense. So they basically, I mean, obviously this isn't the case, but it reminds me of it, but almost like a book value, like the book value of your
Yeah.
clients, because they get access to your clients, right?
Yep.
Obviously it's a little bit more than that, but that makes sense to me, doing the client acquisition like that. What changed in the second time around?
I think the second time around, I mean, essentially the first time around, with the cash flow that we had and the fact that it was a 3-year deal, they were buying us with our own cash flow. Now, it turned out that, so we got money up front, and then you had to achieve growth goals over those 3 years, and then you could get the full amount. We got really lucky in that we achieved those growth goals in the first 14 months. And so we got the full payout.
That's
That was
great.
like so lucky from one huge client. Like, it was, the whole thing was just a joke. It would never go like that. So we happened to be the beneficiary, and we made the money we expected to. But we saw so many of our colleagues in the industry that did deals like that didn't meet their earnout. So they had essentially sold like the golden goose in their mind for a third of what they thought they could have gotten. So I think the second business, we did two things. One is we wanted to make sure that the deal wasn't structured around us staying at the business. And in fact, it wasn't, right? We had to stay for a year, but that's all we had to stay. And in doing that, very early on, we hired more senior people than you could get comfortable with when you had a small business, because they were expensive. So we started very early. We took on a little bit of debt. We put our own money in, and we really kind of hired expertise pretty early. And that really paid off, because they ended up not only being with us, but they ended up making money when we sold. So that was a great thing for both sides of that. So one is that we immediately built the team, and there was never a time that it was no. I mean, people associated me with the firm, but when we were selling new business, people didn't think that I was going to be the one on the account unless I told them I was. So I think that was really huge. But the second was, from second one, we built the business with cash flow so that the financials always look good. And if they didn't, we fixed it real quickly. And two, we started talking to potential buyers year one. We just told everybody around us what we were doing. Hey, we've got this firm, we're doing this thing. Maybe we could partner. Okay, we couldn't partner. Well, let's have, dinner next quarter, and I'll tell you more about what we're doing. We just had a list of basically 100 potential buyers, and we just touched them every month, because we knew that consulting sales are like opportunistic. A strategic buyer feels a load of pain about having a part of their business that they don't have expertise in, and they got to fix it quickly. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were super ready when those firms had that pain point. And what we saw really early was that nobody was building out environmental, social, and governance communications, but that, it was becoming a really important thing to investors, but also regulatorily, the SEC was going to make you say something as a public company about ESG. So we built that expertise out very, very early. And we just kept investing, because we really believed that these firms that we were talking to would have an acute problem, realize they didn't have it, and have to fix it fast. And so that's exactly what happened. And at that point, the reason the multiple was so much higher is because we had a bunch of firms competing. You had a bunch of people that realized, oh my God, there's a need in corporate right now, and I can't fill it. And my clients are going to other people to fill it. So the second part of it is just any consulting firm, any services business, just be talking to people all the time. I'm so amazed by women who are like, oh, that CEO would never talk to me. Yes, he will. Yeah, he will. Talk to him 5 times, tell him what you have, make him take you out for coffee, give his kid a job. He will talk to you. And then you've built that relationship, and there'll be a moment where they need you.
There's a lot to unpack there. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Just on your last note about the CEO would never want to talk to me. I ran into that when I was just a lowly blogger at Empire Flippers. How do I talk to these founders, right? And what I found, if you're just authentic, you reach out, and ideally not in a pitchy way, but in a value-led way. In my case, I tend to have a really weird, sarcastic, nerdy humor, and that works really well with my
Yeah.
ICP. Like people are much more easy to get a hold of than people think. Like everyone thinks there's this army of
No.
gated walls you have to pass through, but like it can sometimes be as simple as just sending a nice direct message on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, and I think LinkedIn makes the world so much easier. And the only thing I add to that is because I now get these incomings all the time. When you're sending that note, just make it really clear that you got one thing. Can you get 10 minutes? You've got a very discreet question. I'm not
Yeah.
going to talk to you for an hour and show you pictures of my cats. Like, I have one thing that
Second, that's the second Zoom meeting.
that's a second Zoom when you run friend.
Yeah.
But that I have something, that you have an expertise I really need. I will take 10 minutes of your time. I'll take it anytime you want. And I will ask you this one really important question. That's the only other thing I would say. When people ask me broadly, I just think, oh God, that's going to be an hour discussion. I don't have time this week.
Right,
When someone
right.
says, how'd you scale this specific thing? I'm like, oh, got it. Let's talk tomorrow. I can tell you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like when you do that, make sure it's like clearly not the friction. Like I'm not going to take up a bunch of your time, versus like I get people who want to get me on a podcast. And they want to have like 2 hours, like before we even do the
Right.
podcast. Like, why aren't we just doing the podcast?
Right.
Like, what's
That
going on?
is,
Right. So I'm totally with you. I want to go back to what you said earlier about like building your second business with the mindset to sell. I think this is so important. So I've sold a little bit over 2,500 deals at this point, over a decade. And something that is always very, very common, I deal with it every day basically, is a seller doesn't want to talk to me yet because they're not looking to sell until
yeah.
2 years from now. To me, this is such a folly because they should be talking to me during that period because that's enough time for us to actually do something to change the business to try to get it to the valuation you want to go at. So I'm assuming you must have learned this from the 1X exit, right? Like, oh shit, I probably should have prepped a little bit more.
There's only so much. I remember with the 1X exit, we had a path where we could have doubled cash flow. We would have made different decisions. But when you're talking to a buyer, and at that point, that deal was based on cash flow. And we had taken a strategy at that point that we were going to be in the main offices where our clients were, which is, kind of sounds really funny now, right? But 15 years ago, it was the strategy. So we had made investments there and we pulled down cash flow because of it. Well, at the end, this buyer, they were going to close every one of our offices anyways. They were going to merge them into their own. So we got less of a multiple because we had lower cash flow. We got less money because we had lower cash flow. Had someone come when we were starting to build that out and say, well, the way the deals in your business, they look like this and they're predicated on this, we wouldn't have done that strategy. We would have had double the cash flow. We would have had double the cash in our pockets. But you have to know as a seller what a deal is likeliest to look like, what it's based on, what it's likeliest to look like. Is it strategic? Is it financial? What's the multiple they use? And I don't know how else you know that until you start to have conversations. You write an investment teaser, you share your financials, and then you hear them go, oh, yeah, no, we wouldn't touch your business. Here's why. And then you kind of figure out how you're going to fix your business. Our first LOI on the second business that we sold was 1/5 what the final LOI was. Like it was very clear that we had a software product and we had to do something with it, either invest in it or scrap it to get the multiple we wanted. We ended up investing it. But that first terrible LOI where they basically applied a 0 multiple for a software product we had that was really smart but hadn't caught on yet, we really learned. We're like, either invest and make this thing very clearly valuable or ditch it. Just because we have it, we're not getting any multiple and we're losing because we have investing cash flow in that product that we're getting 0 multiple for. Yeah, I would talk to a business broker at any point. I would talk to a banker at any point. I would give them whatever they wanted after an NDA. I want everyone's opinion on what they think I could do with this business. I'll ultimately decide what I'm going to do and what I want to sell it for. But man, I want smart people's opinions and guidance and help on that all the time.
I 100% agree with you. Like whether it's a business broker, a due diligence firm, a banker, whatever, like those people are on your side. Like they typically represent the seller. There are some buy side versions, but most of the time they're representing the seller, right? So you want them to like make you basically really uncomfortable with all the things that are messed up
Yeah.
about your business, right?
And like you want to be mad and like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Greg has no idea. You want to sleep on it. You want to really live it. I always think about it's the same as when someone comes to appraise your house and they're like, yeah, we don't care about any of that. Your kitchen's ugly. Okay, you can get personal about it, or you can do exactly what
Right.
the guy who sells all day long every day tells you to do to get a higher multiple. I mean, we all get to make those choices, but we should have awareness and knowledge. And unless it's so obvious exactly what the cookie cutter recipe card would be for selling your business, which it never is in services, ever, 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 you need some help.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of great entrepreneurs basically lose out on becoming a multimillionaire just because of their own ego, right? Like they don't want to hear that. Like, no, everything's fine. This business is like the best thing since sliced bread. Like, you would be a billionaire if it was, though.
I mean, that's the greatest thing about working with moms all day. We feel like we are messing up our kids terribly. Like we're always self criticizing. So if someone comes along with a good idea, we're like, sure, we'll change it. I do think I see a
More
huge difference
adaptable.
between my sons and daughters in that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would say out of all the business models I've served, say my SaaS founders are the most like rigid.
Yeah.
Where like I remember being at a conference where they were at like a beer mix up a cocktail meetup that I was doing, and I made a joke about how you're going to drink so many of these cocktails you'll wake up and you won't have a business anymore, but I would have made you a millionaire. It was like a young crowd. Most of the time at any other conference people laugh for it as a
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
But this SaaS founder, he put down the cocktail that I bought him, and he's like, no way. I'm like, dude, calm down. You have a cleaning app that's been around for like 4 years that makes barely $2,000 a month, dude. Like you're not getting the Silicon Valley exit that you think you're gonna get for this.
Yeah. But, and they better be doing something with AI right now, right? If you're a SaaS founder,
Right,
you better
right.
be.
I'm curious. So you have a bit of a tech. So two questions before we go back to your exes. The first one, like you have a little bit of a tech background. You're in San Francisco. What do you think about what's happening with AI in the SaaS world? What are your thoughts on the outcome there?
Okay, here's what you don't know. My ex-husband had a SaaS company that Vista has invested in, and I still own a portion of it. So I'm super aware of this space. Here's the two,
Mm.
I mean, because I have to, it really affects my net worth. So two things. One is I think that, AI is the very tool we think it's going to be. But what I see from the conversations I'm having is those AI guys who are so brilliant and they have everything we need. Here's what they don't have. They don't have client relationships. They don't have easy turnkeys. So if it's a B2C where it's cheap to find a client relationship, that's fine. If it's a B2B and in order to get in to a mid or large company, they need some form of client relationship. Like the rules of getting a Fortune 500 company to buy your stuff apply to everyone, including AI founders. And a lot of these guys, brilliant, but they're like, this is my product. Everyone's going to love it. And I just laugh. I think, good luck getting into Coca-Cola like I did. That's going to take you a couple of years. But where I see the really interesting thing going on for SaaS right now, I think, is those companies that have like pretty entrenched client bases, they've been using them for years, even if it's for a small number. The AI companies and the massive, massive PE firms that are funding them, they need those client relationships. Like, I think there's going to be a really interesting, I think the idea that consulting firms are dead and no one needs the services side anymore, no way. I think there's going to be a really interesting, whether it's joint partnerships or whether it's just pure acquisition, where these guys with these really brilliant client facing tools buy into SaaS firms who've got these long client relationships and they embed their product in there. I mean, that's probably like hopeful for me because that's how I would make the most money. But I also I think I kind of see it happening.
That's interesting. I think I'm a somewhat similar opinion. So I've seen AI come and absolutely wreck the affiliate business model,
Yep.
at least the SEO content site model, which we sold hundreds of those type of websites. And I always tell people like the thing I'm really fearful about is what's going to happen to SaaS. I could see them for the first time in a very long time being threatened in a way they've never really been threatened before. Because like
Agreed.
what was their moats going away? And like I have all these friends that say, oh, marketing agencies are dead or whatever. Like I actually think
No.
marketing agencies are about to live through a golden revolution because the thing that's always like hamstrung them was the labor, right? Now you got AI being the labor for these marketing agency owners. Like
100%.
you're not going to have a Fortune 500 guy in the Discord like doing the mid journey thing, right?
Right. And okay, this is like me promoting my new business, Retrivia, which is advisory business, but it's all about for services companies who have been spending all their money to get discovered on SEO, only to find out that like half of that is now on LLMs. Like I think
Zero
there's
clicks.
okay. So the amazing thing that got me to start this business is that the marketing firms haven't figured this out yet. So this is my like dime store advice for everyone. Start a company right now using AI that's marketing oriented. These big marketing firms, they're literally still debating if they're going to allow their employees to use ChatGPT because it might be problematic in their tech stack, right? And so they're going to wake up so hard and realize SEO is equally important to less important than LLMs. And they're going to have to go out and buy specialty firms that use AI for marketing. And I think those multiples are going to be great. So that's my.
I agree. I agree. Certainly better than your typical agency. I think that's great advice. Moving back to your two exits. So your first PR firm, first consulting firm was in this financial narrative. Sounds like the second was about environmental narratives.
Here's what it was. They were both financial, where the communications was the public communications to institutional investors, right? So it was big public companies, how they were going to communicate their financial story. What we did in the second is we said, you're not just communicating your financial story via the numbers. Institutional investors are starting to see that environmental and social factors bring about risk, right? So if you treat people really terribly at a plant and they have a labor stoppage for 90 days, you lose money that quarter. If you pollute, I mean, these are like real world examples. If you pollute
Yeah.
a river, you're going to get sued terribly, terribly, terribly. And there's all these remediation costs. Well, all that stuff is not just like bad environmental, bad publicity. You lose money that quarter. You have investments you didn't expect to make. You got to shut down a plant you didn't know you were going to need to. And so it was really the second business was, hey, public CEO, we're not just going to report your financial numbers. We're going to make investors feel better that you don't have environmental and social risks, or we're going to admit that you do have them, but you've ring fenced them and you figured out what to do with them. So it was really like an extension. And I think the big miss, and it's why I so much believe marketing firms are going to miss too and have to acquire, the big miss is that the big companies in our space, they did not want to have to hire environmental and social specialists that work communications people. Well, we did. We brought in really smart scientists who couldn't write a sentence, but they knew the issues so well. We paired them with our awesome content writers, and and out came like digestible, believable stories that a CEO would say, yeah, I'm ready to talk about that. That's a great release. Let's get it out there. So that was our special sauce that the marketing firms and the big comms firms, they were so late to the dance on this one that by the time they needed it, they had to buy a full turnkey solution.
I love that. That's similar to, I talk to a lot of marketers and like, how do I get these people to buy my thing? Like, well, have you talked to them? Have you asked them a question about like, why did they buy in the first place or why are they not buying? Like just surveying or like
Yeah.
getting on the phone with someone.
Like, what's their pain point? What's the thing that makes them
Right.
nervous? Okay, maybe
Right.
my business fits that.
Yeah, like and you talking to the scientists, like they are renowned at being bad at communication, right? So setting them up with someone who is good at communication, like makes sense, and they can go back and forth. The scientists are like, no, you got this wrong here, here, here. Like, okay, let me like, go fix
And
it,
it gave
whatever.
us such credibility with our client where we said, look, we're comms people. We've invested in these super smart environmental people. Like we know we don't know the issues as deep as we need to, but that guy does. And so we're going to
Yeah,
translate what that guy knows into speak that you could go to your institutional investors with. We got lucky. We had the money to make investments, but also like we were pretty gutsy. We made that call. We set that business up. We didn't have a client for 9 months. We had an entire team we were paying. I think we had 100 meetings with people that were decision makers that knew us. And they would be like, that is so great. Congratulations on that new business. And they didn't buy a thing. The market hadn't caught up yet. The threat of the SEC coming in and saying you have to talk about this wasn't close enough yet. I mean, when it opened, the floodgates opened, but the first 9 months were like, what have I done?
congratulations on having the resilience to keep going. I'm going to get to the question I actually wanted to ask you, but you just reminded me of like these entrepreneurs I talk to that do all this. Like I think you even mentioned it earlier. They just build a product and think people are going to come and Like, well, why do you think it will work? Like, all my friends say it's great. Like, well, has any of your friends bought it yet? Like, no. Like, well, let's hold on. Let's see who actually like puts in their credit card, right? Maybe we should
Yes.
run some ads first. But the question I wanted to ask you, so your first company was even more in the finance space than the second one, it sounds like, in terms of like the financial narrative. When you sold that first company and when you were going through the second sell, did you use those same skills to help you increase your own financial narrative in that second company? And if
Oh,
so,
yeah.
like how so?
This is funny. We really leaned into on the first company the fact that, we founded this thing and we brought it from nothing. And we were really kind of all about our narrative story. And they loved us, right? And they wanted us, but they wanted us as employees because that's the story we were telling. With the second, we never did. We really leaned on system and processes. From second one, we had a knowledge share where every single person got trained in the way that we approached clients. Then we had a knowledge share about these really in-depth topics that we didn't know enough about, but we had to be trained on. We had systems for, hey, we haven't talked to a client in 3 days. It's day 4. What do we send to them? We had really well built out thought leadership. We had a whole set of things that defined Claremont Partners that weren't related to myself or the other founder. And I mean, our narrative became systems, process, and pipeline, whereas our narrative in the first one was people, a talent, and the multiples speak for themselves. There's inherent risk in two founders that you just made a little bit wealthy. There is not inherent risk in a product process system. We were just too dumb to realize it until the second one.
I resonate a lot with the stories you're telling just from various client experiences. But I've had sellers like, oh, I really don't want to be stuck working as an employee for like 2 to 3 years with a buyer. And I would tell them, like, look, man, like usually that doesn't happen. Like it might say it on paper, but like on the buy side, if they've acquired more than a couple deals in the past, they know that founders tend to make pretty bad employees, and they also usually don't want you around. Like until
No.
like once everything's stable, like they want you around for that. But like then, all right, you should go.
I mean, I think I was, and I'm sure they will back it up. I think I was the world's worst employee. And the
There
only
you
difference
go.
between the two deals is the first company thought they could convince me to be a good employee. The second deal was structured,
I can
they
fix that.
knew they couldn't. And I thought that was, and by the way, that's because it was a private equity backed firm who was like, in a million years, she's not going to stay. So let's build a business. And they were right.
You guys got to figure it out on that front. I want to move into the female Mavericks for the second half of the show, but before we do, maybe we can wrap up a bit about this exit in your second business. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you exited at 12 million annual revenue. Is
10.
that about right? 10.
10.
Okay, and if it was a 4x,
Yep.
that's awesome. So $40 million of an exit. Talk to me kind of like the A to Z, the highlights of how did that come together? You were already hitting up buyers every single month.
Yeah.
So how many years was into the actual exit, and how
Yeah.
did the actual process start?
By the way, we were 10 million in annualized versus recognized, right? So we had built whatever the number was that our monthly recurring revenue was get us 10 million. I'm saying that because I think it's important. Our actual revenues were below 10 and we did get the number
Yeah.
you said. So I think a couple things. From second one, I told you we talk to everybody all the time. Do you want to partner with us? Could we bring our services to you? Could you introduce us to your clients? So we were always like in these engaged discussions, and we always had the cleanest financials, period. We hired a banker, and we ended up terminating the banker, waiting out that period where you can't sell your business. And then,
The 6 month exclusivity
yeah,
type of scenario.
and then setting it ourselves. And the one thing I learned for everyone about bankers or your advisors is our bankers had never sold a business like ours. And so, no joke, we did 100 phone calls, first phone calls, including with once they set us up with the wrong company. It was a consumer services company that had the same name as a services company in our space. I'm not even kidding. Neither side of the equation.
Someone's cold email has gone astray.
Yep. Second one, no joke. We did a full pitch call with who turned out to be a summer intern. Not even kidding. Summer intern
Wow.
from college. So that process, after talking to so many people, and basically people weren't interested, I think We learned two things. One, probably that is not the banker for us. I mean, no disrespect for them. I think they were good guys. I just think they didn't know our space. But the second was that those firms were not feeling the pain of environmental, social, and governance communications yet. They took the call because they were like, we're hearing more about it. When they realized what they'd have to pay for it, they didn't do it. So here's what we did, which is like, I mean, tail between our legs. We took those 100 and we took 15 that we thought were honest players. And we didn't have the banker reach out to them. We made them talk to us. What did you see? What didn't you see? What would compel you? We ended up having some really great conversations that were postmortems on why we wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole unless you'd sell for 100,000. And the big takeaways from that were A, the market wasn't quite there yet. B, they wanted us to lead. This is where we got the idea. They wanted us to lead with systems, processes, operations. They did not want us to lead with talent. And we had been leading with talent because we were really proud of our team. And then third, they wanted us to sell the dream more. Like, my partner and I are pragmatic. We're moms of 9 combined. We are Midwest born and bred. We came from immigrant families. Like, we tell the truth. We tell it the way it is. Well, we heard from everyone, you didn't sell the dream till minute 14 of a 15-minute conversation. And I wasn't interested in that point. So they really helped us. We tucked our tail between our legs and we kind of waited for the market to come back. And we made sure that we had a great story, that we were adding new business, which we did. So that was fast forward a year or two. Then we took exactly what they told us, which is we led with the dream. And to the point where we had growth capital players come to the table and say, look, we'll invest X million. I mean, someone who wants to invest $40 million in a business that size, I think that's the nuttiest investment ever in a services company. But like, people were willing to do it because at that point, ESG had gotten to be such a huge deal and everyone realized they were behind the 8 ball. So I feel like the learning was whatever I thought about the way I was going to sell the business, I was wrong because I had 100 conversations, no one bit, and I talked to a summer intern. Okay. So like, I had to just take my ego back, and we took exactly what they said. We recreated the investment teaser ourselves, and we went out to targets ourselves. And, at that point, we then got 3 offers and we took one of them.
There's so much wisdom in what you just did there. And for any of my listeners out there, even if you're not selling your business, just trying to grow your business, like, sometimes talking to the people who said no to you is like the most amount of money you'll ever make, because you figure out why they said no and you go and fix that thing, right? Which is exactly what you did. I literally today, I was actually on another podcast about a guy that helps e-commerce store owners like increase their subscription revenue. And he said very similar stuff, like go and talk to them. Why did they cancel? Why did they churn? Like, why was the onboarding process not good enough, right? These are your pain points to go and fix. And very similar in selling a business. But I will say you also have given me hope, because I often push the guys at Empire Flippers that we should be selling like 40, $50 million deals. And sometimes they'll push back like, oh, we're not as good as these other bakers. Like, well, I know one that gave put the founder on a call with a summer intern. I think we could do a little bit better than this.
I mean, and that, like, I just gave you the 2 worst stories. We were convinced one guy was fast asleep on the phone. I mean, the calls, they just weren't well, because these guys didn't know our industry very well. I would have rather had 15 calls of substance, even if they rejected us. No, it was terrible.
Sure. That's great. So you end up getting these growth partners looking at your deal. You made it sound like they bought at a crazy multiple for what you even thought. So walk me through what you were feeling as that happened.
Yeah, I won't ever forget. We got one okay offer, which we considered, but we thought was too back end loaded. And then I was in Spain actually visiting my son who was studying for school there. And I don't remember where Victoria was, but we got this email with the offer in it. And like, we both called each other and was like, this is made up, right? Is this really from them? It was so crazy. And what I realized, and then you have to hand it to us. We went back and negotiated. And it wasn't me. My partner was like, if we could get this, imagine what we could get. I mean, it was terrible. But the little bit of the learning was that it was the perfect storm, that ESG was suddenly going to be regulated by the SEC and nobody was ready. So that was a perfect storm. But the second one that I would never have known is that PE firms push up the multiple because they don't want to negotiate. and there's no earnout. So those deals, we were being acquired by a firm that was invested in by a PE firm. And so if I had to do it right now again, I hate to say it, but I would only talk to strategic investors that had PE backing. The multiple differences were really, they were quite stark. I think PE firms, I'm not sure that you know how to value services companies, thank God. But I think also if they need something strategically, they're pricing it to get a deal done. They're not pricing it to negotiate. I mean, that was a huge learning, and we just stumbled upon that. We did not differentiate that way. We did not know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I think about buyers, I think that there's the newbie buyer who's never bought a business. Usually they're buying a smaller business and really they need the seller to act almost like a quasi mentor because there's a lot of fear in that transaction, right? And hopefully the seller is accommodating. We always try to help those type of buyers because we want to see them succeed, right? But then there's the financial buyers, which are more traditional, like PE backed people, or sometimes like affluent entrepreneurs. But no one compares to the actual strategic because even the PE buyer, if they're buying for cash flow, they're never going to beat out the strategic. The strategic, like 1+1 = 5 for them, which is not true even in the PE guys' world, unless they're the strategic, right? So the strategic always wins in terms of how much they could pay. They're almost always the best. So I agree. When you found these strategics, were you proactively outreaching to them, or were they starting to come to you as you like kind of evolved your story?
Yeah, I think two things happened. One, we would reach out to people, but really what was happening is that we would be side by side with a client. So a big strategic would be doing 80% of the communications work for a client. And then little old us would come in because we had this specialty. And so the more that we would work side by side with the bigger firms, then we started to get calls from the bigger firms because they realized, wait, that's a product, a service offering we need. If we could turnkey it, we would buy them tomorrow. And maybe my other answer to your question, I just want to make sure and bring up is you have to be ready to sell your firm every quarter, every second. Either a strategic or a financial sees that there won't be a lot of friction in a deal. You can get them financials, everything's clean, they can look at you very easily. You become a lot more attractive than the guy who's got to like call his accountant in to get last year's audited financials, et cetera. We had a package, it was constantly available. Every quarter we updated the package. You were interested, you signed an NDA, we sent it to you. And I think that lack of friction was very attractive to both sets of buyers.
That is an incredible piece of advice. I've given this advice to people too. Very rarely anyone takes me up on it, but yes, like we've had plenty of 7-figure and even 8-figure deals where like we vet them, make sure the finances are good when it goes to market, and then we need to update it every month, right, to keep it like as up to date as possible. And sometimes sellers just ghost us, like, man, we're trying to give you like $5 million. Like, can you please like update this?
Update, like you should be able to tell me what your receivables were or trends. Yeah.
Right.
I know why sellers, number one, you're super busy. And number
Yeah.
two, it does take some investment, right? It's not like we were hand doing our packets every quarter. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but we had someone help us with it because we had to run the business and sell. So I
Oh
understand why
yeah.
sellers don't do it, but like that is so much of a better call than some other stupid stuff that we
A hundred
invest
percent.
in
Yeah.
as a seller.
I always just recommend hiring an accountant with some experience. Like once you get like the first model set up, like then you can just go on to like a low. I mean, you need bookkeeping anyways, right? Usually they'll like have some downsell package. You can get onto that,
Right.
but just to keep those numbers up to date every month. And I don't think it should be the entrepreneur doing it because to your point, they're so busy. And entrepreneurs, well, maybe you're a little bit different, but most entrepreneurs tend to be pretty bad with their books because
No.
their head is all up in the vision.
Just let someone else do it. And our accountant would do it. And then he would give you a packet, and the front page would be like, here's 3 things that I'm seeing that you might want to think about. Receivables are slower, whatever they are. And it just either we would look at it and say, nope, that's just this quarter, or he's right. So we never
Yeah.
had something go so far out of whack because we did have an external party look at it and say, let me see what I'm seeing in the trends. I think part of it when I talk to potential sellers is they just can't believe that someone will buy their business, so they don't make that investment. And like, I was like, of course they'll buy my business. I mean, we had like one client, and I'm like, of course they'll buy it. I mean, that was just like,
You're reaching out to them during the 9 months without
yeah.
any clients, with the
I
sounds of
mean,
it.
yeah. So you just sort of, if that's not
I
you,
love it.
channel
Yeah.
me for 5 minutes a quarter. It'll be worth it. Yeah.
I always tell sellers like M&A is like it works in reverse the way you think it is. You think I need to convince these buyers to buy me, but if you have a good business, it's really the buyers that need to convince you to sell to them. Like it works in backwards. The only thing they can offer you is money and a structure of how you're going to get that money. They can only give you a commodity at the end of the day. But you, as the entrepreneur, you're the real like darling of the ball, the person sitting on the throne that they all want because you built the thing that's rare, the asset, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think it's great what you were doing there, and people should have more confidence. I want to get into the female maverick side, but before we do, one final question. So when you sold this second business, how did you feel afterwards? What did you do after you sold it?
So this is kind of covered in the book because Victoria, my partner, did the exact same thing. We like acted like it was no big deal and went on to think what we were going to do next. Like there was a point where I had a lot of money in my checking account, and like Chase Bank had to call me and say, like, this is in your money market. Someone could access it with your debit card. And part of that was just like I was so paralyzed by this thing that I have been working. I mean, I worked for financial freedom. I have 4 kids. This thing I had worked for so hard and given up so much of my life for. I just like I was paralyzed. I don't have any other speed. So I immediately started thinking what I was going to do next without thinking, oh my God, like I don't ever have another, like my kids can have whatever they want, So part of it was I didn't take a good victory lap and quiet lap. And so it took me a while to figure out what I was going to do next. And also took me a really long while to realize I didn't want to making another nest egg my number one goal in my 50s. But it took me a really long time to get to that. So shock, we didn't spend the money. I know people say they go out and spend the money. I know I didn't. I just like looked at it. And then I swear, right? So I told the guy who called me from Chase, put it in my savings account. And he said, your savings account gets like, 0.025. I was like, yeah, but at least it's safer. It took me a full year to actually bring someone in to help me. And whatever, the whole thing was
I
so,
love
and
it.
I'm good with money.
Right.
No, I was so just, is this all I'm doing? And oh my God, that's a lot of money. Who would know what to do with that anyway? So I did not deal with it. I chose to like repress it and not think about it for a while.
The reason why I asked is I had a feeling there might be an answer like that. So, after selling so many people's businesses, one thing that I always tell my friends before they start a selling process with me or with anyone else is like, look, we're creatures of tomorrow as humans. Like if tomorrow ever becomes today, we're kind of screwed because we're inherently need a goal, right? Like I can give you millions and millions of dollars for your business. You're going to be thrilled for 5 minutes. And then
Yeah.
I would call it entrepreneurial postpartum depression where like your
Yeah.
baby is like gone. Like, oh my God, what have I done? What am I going to do with
Because
myself?
when all
Right.
you're focused on is a future in this business for 25 years and then you're not anymore, like
Right.
there's a mourning period.
Yeah.
The other period is oh, I'm not that important anymore period. Like
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I was the up and coming. Okay, now I had the highest valuation. Now nobody knows me and cares about me. It's been a great like personal exercise for me, but it's been an exercise.
Yeah, I bet. And this is the thing most entrepreneurs never think about. They just think, once I get the money, I'll be happy. Like, there's a little bit
Not
more that goes into
Are you
that.
kidding me? This is like way too personal. I got the money and my life fell apart. My marriage of 24 years, my husband left me. I was fast becoming an empty nester. I was like, what the hell? I have done this my entire life. How is so?
Empty nesting in the wrong
Yeah.
direction on that
There's
one.
an awesome postscript. Everybody's happy. I'm happy. The world is great. But oh my God, that
Right.
all happened at once. So no one like assume your happiness, it all relies on what your bank account says because it definitely does not.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you were able to share that
Oh
with my
God, yeah.
audience because it's something I see a lot play out. But let's move into female mavericks as we get towards the tail end of this. Talk to me a bit about why you started that. Like, what's going on with this? Explain
So
it to
this
me.
was like at the end of I know this sounds crazy, but my most horrible year of my life and my richest.
It's ironic how they often go together.
I mean, it's such a learning. So Female Mavericks is a mission-driven nonprofit company. We're not going to make any money off it. And the whole point of it is that my business partner and I, like, we really do believe that women make great entrepreneurs, moms make even better entrepreneurs. And we were so sick of talking to women who either put their dreams aside or decided that they could do a side hustle and that would be enough. So we thought, well, let's start mentoring and talking to people. So we've done a ton of that and we do a ton of that. It's all free. And then we wrote a book, which is coming out September 22nd, which is not free. However, if you can show need, you do get it for free. So hopefully the book will be a great seller, and hopefully it gets in the hands of female entrepreneurs. And then we put out a bunch of content, the exact same thing. It really is mission driven. We want 10,000 moms to become 7-figure entrepreneurs. We did it. It totally changed our lives. Our kids want for nothing. And trust me, as a mom, you're always so nervous that what you're doing is messing up your kids. I mean, I don't know that I have ever felt closer to my kids. I've never felt luckier. And my oldest son turned 25 yesterday, and he's texted me 5 times this morning because he had something interesting happen. Like, we wanted to give moms, first of all, the confidence that they could be a founder and they could be an exiter. And then number 2 is that your kids are going to be just fine. My kids are better for it. They're incredibly resilient. I have incredibly tight relationships with them. Victoria has the same story. And so part of it is just the books that we read about entrepreneurs that have made it big. They're 99% about men, and our story is really different. And as a mom, our story is really different too. And so the whole point of Female Mavericks is pick the right model for you as a mom, and it's not a side hustle. You can hit 7 figures with almost any model, and then let's work on
Yeah.
that. So it's totally mission driven, but I do want the book to sell, and I don't think I've ever felt better about what I've been doing than I feel today with Female Mavericks.
That's awesome. And I think there's so much of it. And I'm assuming it will probably be the same with when you describe your work with women founders. But what I find is so much of it's just a mindset issue, no matter your walk of life. Like if I look at what makes a 7-figure business, roughly $30,000 net profit per month over a 12-month average. That's roughly the metric you need to hit for a 7-figure business, which is not that crazy. Like maybe if you're starting out like, oh my God, that sounds like crazy. But like
No, it's
you're on a
not.
marketing agency, that could be literally 30 to 50 clients, right? Like,
And it's a slow build. You
yeah,
start with 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Suddenly you're passing over 30. Your
yeah.
mindset is, it's a build.
Yeah, and I think some people have this mindset of like, oh, I need to be ruthless to make this business work. Like my dad wasn't ruthless. He grew up as a dirt poor farmer in Missouri and like made something of himself from that. But or that you have to hustle all the time, which I imagine would be a big one for
Yeah.
mothers with kids, right? Like, oh, I just don't have enough time. But like you don't have to do like Gary Vaynerchuk like crazy workaholism,
No.
right?
I mean, A, you better pick the right business, right? And then B, you better have your non-negotiables. Both my business partner and I, we had our non-negotiables of what we wouldn't miss with the kids. And most of the time, we didn't. And sometimes it meant we took 2 red eyes. And we just did it because it was a non-negotiable. Or I would routinely from Chicago to San Francisco for new business and for opening our office, I would do a day trip. I would leave at 6 a.m. and I would take the red eye home. Like, you just do hard things like that because your business is growing, but also you have non-negotiables. You have stuff that you are not going to miss with your kids, and you do it. And women are so tough. I mean, all people are tough, but I should say parents are tough because I think there's a lot of guys going through the exact same. There are a lot of female mavericks that have joined us. They are parents and they're dads. They're trying to be really good dads. And so they're feeling the same thing we were feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with my dad being an entrepreneur, and I don't know anyone that has a closer relationship with their dad than me. Like, I consider him my best friend.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly you can do it, right?
Yes.
Like, very busy. When it comes to helping women start their own business, like, mothers and all that kind of stuff, like, what is the most common, I guess, fear or obstacle you have to help them overcome typically when they start realizing, no, you actually can go and do this? Like,
Yeah. I think there's 2. One is just debunk this idea that you can't be a great and present mom, because I might not have been present all the time, but I was a big force and I have great relationships and I know hundreds of other women just like that. So get that out of your mind. But I think the second is women are a lot more risk averse. And a lot of times now they are the only or they're a big contributor to the financials of their family. And so they get really nervous that if I fail, my family is going to be in trouble. And I think the part that they miss is you can do everything right in corporate and get laid off and fired. And that's just
oh, yeah.
corporate. There's the stats that show every 10 years they're going to turn over everybody. So I wish I could say there isn't risk in starting a business. There is. But the missed risk for women and moms especially is you think you're so safe in that corporate job. You're not. You have financial risk. So now maybe it's something that you're in control of versus, some corporate overlord.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, if you look at you being at a job, like that's just one income stream versus like you running a business. Like more risk, especially when you start, but the asymmetric reward is much greater than the
Yeah.
asymmetric reward of being an employee as you start figuring it out. You mentioned a couple of times about helping them find the business model that makes sense. Or what do you mean by that? Are you helping them gauge, like, should you go into e-commerce or start a service business? Like, what are you talking about there when you
So
mention
there's a
that?
great, and we have newsletters on it, but the book, which will come out September 22nd, has a lot more. But it's the idea of a matrix, which is, first of all, number one, is there a total addressable market of what you've chosen of 100 million or more? Because you're going to get 1% of that market at best, and that better be seven figures. So the number one thing is do the total addressable market. I mean, it's amazing how AI can help you do this. If not, hire someone, but you don't need to. Figure out that your total addressable market is big enough that you could hit seven figures. And then the second is, as you build your business model, your execution model, how you're going to get there, build in your personal non negotiables. So if your business model, in order to get to a million, if you have to travel 365 days a year, or there's something strange about the hours that you have to work, you might not choose to do that as a mom. You might have to pick something else. And if you're someone who wants to be home at 4 o'clock every night to be with your kids and do what Victoria did, she would be home and then she'd go back on at 7. Again, there's only certain businesses that will support that. So make sure you picked it. So part of it is just dollar wise, is it big enough to get you past seven figures? If it's not, it's a passion project, don't do it. And the second is, okay, to build out to that seven figures, are you going to break your personal non-negotiable with how you want to be home and there for your kids? Okay, if you once you've hit those two and you've passed them, you got the right business for yourself. But I think what happens is we build a business plan and we start on the business plan, and then we realize, oh gosh, the market that I initially carved out isn't big enough, or wow, I can't really do this and still like pick up my kid at daycare. But we're mid business when we started that. We're saying like
Yeah.
spend that 30, 60, 90 days, get it all on paper, commit to it, really believe in it before you start. And understand you may have to pivot. The business that's a passion for you may not deliver what you need, and you got to find another one.
I like that advice a lot. In fact, weirdly, that's very similar advice I give to business buyers who are newbie
Oh,
buyers, right?
interesting.
Well, yeah, like, okay, well, what do you like to do? Do you want to be on a sales call, or is like, no, I don't want to be that? Like, okay, let's not buy an agency. Do you like physical products? We go through this like filter to figure out your buyer criteria. And part of it is like, what are you good at? What do you suck at? What do you definitely don't want to be doing? Because if you
Doing.
definitely don't want to be doing it, maybe you shouldn't be spending like a couple $1 million on buying that thing where you definitely will be doing that thing, right? So you want to create like that whole
Yeah.
plan. So it's interesting. There's a lot of similarity there.
Right.
It
And that
makes
it's
total sense.
innate to you, whatever is the key activity, you're very comfortable doing. And if you're not, I mean, for services businesses, unless you can get comfortable with selling, don't start a services business. This idea that you can
Absolutely.
sell everything digitally, you can't. They still need your body. So, I mean, I think that's a big
Yeah.
gating thing for me with women who want to start services companies or anyone. Like, you want to sell, you're going to sell 50 to 60% of your time.
Yeah.
And I don't mean
I
like
agree.
cringy salesperson. I just mean that's just the reality of you got to get contracts, you got to get them signed. That's your job as a salesperson.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of women that come to you who like, hey, I really want to start a business, but I have no idea what I should
Yeah.
even do? Like, is that a common thing as well? Do you help them out
Yeah,
with that?
because I feel like they've debunked that the thing that they were really passionate about won't build the business that they want. And so I really just try and, I try and tell people, first of all, I did not dream about being an investor relations person. That was not a dream. But what I did love, I loved client contact and I loved the combination of financial and communications. Those were super interesting to me. And so that's how I built that business. It's so much of it is figuring out what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and then maybe what is different about you that you could carve out something competitively. But my God, you better really know your business and love it before you spend 20 years living in it.
I agree. Well, we're coming up towards the end of the podcast. Before we get into the rapid fire section, I have one like long form question to ask you. Out of all the people you worked with, both in the two businesses you sold and now all these women founders, what's one belief in entrepreneurship that you think women and maybe founders in general need to unlearn?
Oh, they need to unlearn that there is a genetic predisposition to be an entrepreneur or not, and or that the best business idea wins, that there's like a perfect business idea, and if they just uncover it, they'll be successful. Entrepreneurship is execution to the nth degree, and positioning yourself for a little bit of luck when it comes your way. But I don't think that there's such a thing as a genetic entrepreneur. I don't think that there is the perfect business idea. And the best entrepreneurs pivot, 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 and then they're suddenly positioned for some really good luck.
That's great advice. I always say, I'm a bit harsher, I guess. I always say ideas are worthless. Execution is everything.
It is. I agree with you.
Like I might have a bigger in the positioning side from the sounds of it than you, because I always say is execution plus vision. Like you have this massive vision, and even if you execute like somewhat okay, as long as the idea is decent, you're probably going to be all right. But if you don't have the vision and you're not executing, it doesn't matter what your idea is.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
All right, rapid fire section. So I'm going to ask you 3 quick questions. You give me 3 quick answers. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, no pressure. What do you think is the best hidden growth opportunities right now for mothers looking to become an entrepreneur?
Figure out AI in a B2B context. Everybody's doing
Agreed.
it in B2C, figure it in a B2B context. Like find what you've done your whole career and find an AI application for it.
Love it. What tools or resources can people use to help them build their business with an exit in mind, like how you did?
Yeah, I think number one is you personally build your revenue progression plan and your cash flow. Like you personally, once you've built it and you have your dashboard, someone else can do it, but you do it. So you know, I got to close 4 things in May or else I'm not going to hit my cash flow number in June. How do I do it? And make sure that you really have built your financials. I talk to so many women who are like, yeah, I'm going to hire a CFO. I'm like, you do not even have a business. You do not need to hire a CFO. You can literally go on Claude and it will build this for you. You know, make your financials very personal to you. You will not make the biggest business mistakes if you do.
That's great advice. There was a book I read a while ago where it mentioned physically entering in your KPIs yourself instead of just relying on like automated dashboards. And there's certain like physicality to it that makes you
Yes.
much more aware of it. So yeah, I really like that advice. All right, final question. What has been your funniest moment working with female founders?
Oh, that is a good question. Here it is. I had a woman who looked vaguely familiar to me when I started the call, but I just I didn't really recognize her, but she looked vaguely familiar. And after an hour, I realized that she was from a firm that we competed with very heavily. And she was trying to leave the firm we competed with really heavily to start a nasty competitive firm. And she did it. But like 45 minutes into it, I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly who you are. You're blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, who are you? I'm like, I'm blah, blah. And she's like, did you pitch very large company X? Yes, we beat you. And she told me how. So this is like 5 years after the fact. I'm calling my business partner going, do you remember when we lost that huge piece of business? I just spent 45 minutes counseling someone who helped me. You just look, my takeaway on that is the world is super small. Just remember that with every word that comes out of your mouth.
Yes, it is strangely small. You know, I meet people all around the world that like I've interacted with them in some ways, like the whole 6 degrees of separation thing,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of truth to it, but that is pretty funny. So, did you figure out how she beat you? Like how she got the client?
Oh yeah, she was so clear, and it was such an obvious mistake on our part. We made a supposition that was dead wrong, and we based our pitch on it. She
Oh
said it
man,
was like shooting fish in a barrel, and I quote.
like damn, maybe you should be consulting me.
Wait a second, I just wasted 40 minutes. No, she ended up to be great. So
That's awesome. Well, Beth, I really enjoyed this conversation. You're a font of wisdom. I think the 2 businesses you exited, incredible advice that can be applied no matter what business someone is building. And anyone that wants to check out Female Mavericks, I highly recommend it. But where do you want us to send people? If someone wants to get to know you.
it's called femalemavericks.com. It's got all the free stuff on there, and it will have a pre-order link for our book that comes out in September. I think it allows you to go on a list to get a pre-order link right now, but it'll have a pre-order
Awesome.
link. But there's so much free content on there that's really highly valuable.
Well, great. We'll put the website obviously in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to seeing what you turn Female Mavericks into.
Oh, it was super fun, Greg. Thank you.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired. at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.